Hey everybody, it's Rachel Parker again, recording from my glorious, actually it's really quite a nice hotel in Brandon. This is Tuesday, it is Church at Home with Rachel, and I want to talk to you about something really serious. This will strike home more for Canadians because we have universal health care than maybe some other folks from around the world and in the States. But I really do believe it's something we need to talk about, and it needs to be something that all of our politicians, regardless of where we are, start to think about and really understand that for the benefit of all of our communities, including their own, we need to take better care of each other. And this video is dedicated to the memory of Bryanna Taylor, and in Thanksgiving for my Uncle Jim and my Aunt Marg. They're Rob's Aunt Marg is his dad's sister, and Jim is her husband. So they're very, very special people to us in our lives. And and I thank Uncle Jim for bringing this to our attention and for being the people that they are, to do this. But first, I'll tell you a bit about Bryanna. Bryanna was a young woman who struggled with some mental health issues, and she was on medication and she had counseling, and things were going okay as anything can be when you have mental health issues. She lived, I believe, in Ontario, in Canada, and her medical health was taken care of by the government financial assistance, until she turned 25. And then she got that letter that said, because you are now 25 years old, we are no longer able to cover your medical care, your counseling, your medications, your prescriptions, things like that. Not much longer after that, Bryanna took her own life. I would love to tell you that Bryanna is the only person who has done that. In preparing for Bryanna's funeral, for her memorial service, my aunt and uncle decided that they would like to buy a rose for each year of her life. So they went into a florist to buy 25 roses. And the young person there asked, that's an unusual number. Usually people buy 2 dozen, not 25. And she explained that it was one for every year of the life of her niece. And the person behind the counter said, I understand that because I remember getting that letter myself when I was 25. In that case, this person, her family and other things were able to help her out to continue her mental health journey. But she remembers how devastating it was to get that letter from the government that says, you no longer have it, you no longer qualify for this assistance. I acknowledge that in Canada we are very fortunate that until 25 we do have that, because for a lot of people getting to the age of 25 can be a really difficult thing, and it can be a lifesaver for many to have that assistance. I believe that the reason the cutoff for 25 is that you are now an adult, and there's limited resources, and I understand that. I understand that because who pays for all this free healthcare? Our taxes do. There's something wrong, though, when we live in a world that has such incredible affluence. Canada has billionaires too, but how many times have we talked about billionaires or watched billionaires over the last little while, flying into space, buying social media platforms and running them into the ground, deciding that they're going to invest in ridiculous things and contribute nothing to society. But the people who are yelling about having to pay more taxes aren't the billionaires. The billionaires aren't paying those taxes. They're paying some, but they're certainly not paying what they could afford to pay. And imagine if they did. But for those people on the other end of the spectrum who are, especially here in Canada, who are railing against our liberal policies, and I'm not talking about Liberal Party or the current party running the federal government. I'm talking about those people who are calling out snowflakes, who are calling out on people to say, we give you get things for free on our backs. Why should we have to pay? All that free health care is got to be paid for somebody. And how about us? In Alberta, for instance, the federal government has passed legislation apparently that would allow for free contraception, for birth control for women. And Alberta has decided, the provincial government in Alberta has decided that they're going to opt out of that program because, they already have something in place. They have something in place for the lowest mean income for women, but they don't have something in place for free for those women who fall between that very, very low, below the poverty rate, to those people who are paying for medications and who are paying for other things, maybe don't have a health plan from work, whose Blue Cross or OHIP in Ontario and the Manitoba Health, those things, those people who those things that fall through the cracks. And what the government is offering is the potential for people to be able to make decisions about their own health care, meaning, do I get pregnant or not? And other aspects of of women's health that contribute to mental health. Because the argument is that if the federal government wants to do that, they're going to have to tax the provinces, tax the people too much. In Canada, I can go into a hospital emergency room. I may have to wait hours and hours and hours, but I'm not going to get a bill. If I take an ambulance, I'll probably get a bill. But I'm not going to get a bill for walking in there and finding out I have pneumonia and they had to do an x-ray to find out, or they have a broken bone, or I was in a car accident and needed a CAT scan. It may take a while to get treatment, but I will get treatment. Our ambulances do not are not turned away from a hospital because the person in the ambulance doesn't have insurance. In Canada, we have those things, but they're not good enough. We need to push our government to have the guts to say to the rest of the country, to say to the provinces, we need to tax these things so that everyone can have the help they need. Think about it from this perspective. If one person, say we'll use Joan Smith. Say Joan Smith is a 32-year-old woman and she has postpartum depression and she has 2 kids at home and a husband who works full-time and she's on maternity leave. Joan Smith goes to her doctor and says, I'm really struggling with depression and really bad thoughts and I can't afford, I'm having trouble because I've got the kids at home and we can, thanks to $10 a day childcare, we can pretty much afford for me to drop them off at daycare, but I'm still struggling with me and my thoughts and how I'm doing with this brand new baby at home, and my husband's insurance doesn't cover my mental health, and I really need help. I need counseling, I need some pills, I need some kind of assistance. And the doctor says to her, this is what we can offer you, this is what's covered by the province, this is what's covered, this copay with your husband's, but there's still this gap of this big amount of money. If Joan Smith can't fight that postpartum depression and she kills herself, she takes her own life, what is the financial ramification for the rest of society? You now have 3 children, one a brand new infant, who are without a parent. You have a father who is without a spouse and who is now trying to figure out how, on one income, to pay for childcare for all 3, especially when childcare is very difficult to find for infants. How is he now going to run his household? What about his own mental health that his insurance won't cover because he's now lost his partner, the love of his life, his partner in life is the mother of his children? What about the mental health of those 3 kids who will probably need that access to that mental health care that they'll get up till they're 25, but what happens when they turn 25? The financial ramifications of someone committing suicide, of someone taking their own life, are huge. But we don't think about that. We argue that to give someone something for free costs too much money for everything else. For Bryanna Taylor, what would it have cost the whole of society if she'd been allowed to proceed to get the medication she needed and the counseling she needed? Overall, really. It would be an interesting study, financial study, to find out If we were to provide accessible health care for every person until such time as they said, you know what, I'm good. I don't need the medications. I don't need the counseling anymore. I can handle this on my own. If we were to do that for every single person, regardless of socioeconomic status in Canada, how much money would be saved on people calling in sick to work? The ripple effect of what happens to families and workplaces and everything else when someone is pulled out of work because of their mental health issues or because they're dead. I understand that people are angry because we pay such high taxes, but we also have homes to live in, and we have a hospital to go to. We have schools that educate our children so they can become part of the working class, where they can contribute to society. I do not buy the argument that the government overtaxes us, so what? They can do what? I think it's really important to recognize that every single one of us will need mental health help at some point in our lives. We really will. We will need medical help and dental and vision at some point in our lives. We will have those moments when our children are sick and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and our doctor can't see us, or it's 3 in the morning and we need to go to the hospital. And there will be someone there to see us because we pay taxes. Why is it more important that some people accumulate wealth hand over fist and determine that others aren't worthy of it? Because the thing is, what I've seen, what I've witnessed, the arguments I've had with people, the Facebook things, and see people responding, this is not the people, it is not people who are millionaires who are saying, for the most part, those grubbers, they're just getting something for nothing. They should just get a job. There's a whole lot of people who struggle to get the job they've got who say it. And they don't realize that how close they might be to losing their job. Or maybe that's why they say it, because they're scared. I don't know. But all I know is that we in Canada, and we should around the world, not be worth looking out for number one all the time, but we should be looking out for our neighbor. Because you know what the gift is if every single person looked out for their neighbor, that means our neighbor's looking out for us. If I'm busy taking care of the person beside me, so busy taking care of the person beside me that I'm not aware of what's happening with me, but I live in a world where somebody else is taking care of me, watching out for me, then we take care of each other, and it's a win-win situation. If I only look to myself and say, no, I'm not going to do that for that person because they don't deserve it, who's going to look at me and say, she deserves it? Nobody. And that becomes a really lonely, scary place to be really quickly. We need to love. We need to pray for one another. We need to reach out to each other. And I'm a Christian. As Christians, we have no choice. Jesus did not say to us, you can go out and choose who you're going to help. Jesus said, go out and help. Give the coat off your back to that person. Feed them from what you have. Jesus did not tell us we can hoard. He said, give it all away. We need to move our government. We need to petition our government, our members of parliament, members of provincial parliament, members of legislative assemblies, to recognize that if we do not do something about the epidemic that is the struggling mental health of our young people, not only will we not have healthy mental health in older people in 20 years, we'll have fewer of them because they didn't make it. And if you need to get right down to brass tacks, it's got to be about money. Think of it this way. For every person who takes their own life because they couldn't get help for their mental health, it's one less person contributing taxes. It's one less person building up the wealth of the nation. It shouldn't have to come down to that. But sometimes it does. And I know that we are blessed in Canada to have so much that we have. But just because we have done well to a degree doesn't mean that we should sit back on our laurels and not work harder to do better. So as my Uncle Jim has asked, I invite you to reach out to your members of parliament, to your local communities, even if it's just your local school, to say, not only ask, what are you doing for mental health in the people that you work with, the people you work for, but how can I help you do that? So you can write letters of petition to your members of parliament, to the Prime Minister. You can write letters to your member of provincial parliament or members of your legislative assembly, to your premiers. Please do. But don't forget that mental health needs to start up here at the top, but it also needs to happen locally. We can do something in our own communities. We can volunteer. We can join the help phone. We can do things that will help people now. It has to be a both and. So for all the Bryanna Taylors of this world, for all the Uncle Jims and Aunt Margs, whose hearts are breaking and are calling us to stand up, we must end the hate and we must start spreading the love. And that can happen through our finances and our taxes, but it must happen through our actions. It has to start now. So I pray in thanksgiving that Bryanna is at peace with God, because I know that she is. And I pray in thanksgiving that God's Holy Spirit will wash over Bryanna's family, and they will give them hope. And I pray in thanksgiving that all of us will do our part to contribute to that hope. That we will do our part in our communities, both small and large, to begin a wave of compassion, a wave of understanding that begins with recognizing in our own lives and the people around us, where there are lacks, where there are gaps in our mental health resources, that we might begin to plug those gaps. And that once we have done so, we might do the bigger work of discovering ways to fix, not just plug gaps, but to fix the mental health crisis that we are seeing not only in our communities, in our country, but around the world. God help us as we do this work. God bless you as you help do this work. I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel. God bless everybody.